What's up guys, this is Johnny Fluette here, and in this video I'm going to be showing you the full process on how to install permanent outdoor lighting. And just in case if none of you guys know what permanent outdoor lighting is, it's basically lighting that you put up on the exterior of the home that, number one, lasts for 25 to 30 years. These lights are fully customizable, meaning you could change all the colors, you could do super cool patterns and animations, set up automatic timers, connected to Google Home or Alexa. These lights literally have it all, okay? And the best part about it is it's controlled from an app on your phone. So just a little bit about what permanent outdoor lighting is. Again, in this video, we're just gonna be showing you the exact process on how to install them. Whether you're, number one, a homeowner that, have looked into it before and want to maybe install it yourself, this video is perfect for you. Or, if you run a home service business and you wanna start offering permanent outdoor lighting as part of your service, these lights are absolutely booming in popularity, so highly recommend getting into the business. And a bonus, make sure you watch to the very end of this video as we give away how you can actually order these exact lights that we use to install permanent outdoor lighting, so you can order them and use them yourself. If you are thinking about starting a permanent outdoor lighting business, or if you already own a permanent outdoor lighting business, please give this channel a subscribe as we cover everything to do with permanent lights, from the installation, different tips and tricks on how to make it more efficient for you guys as business owners, how to sell these lights, how to market these lights. We literally live and breathe permanent outdoor lighting here on this YouTube channel. So please give us a subscribe. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a like. Let's get right into it. We're just going to go over a quick 6-step process, very simple, on how to install the light. So number one, pre-measuring the power booster. Okay, we're going to get very detailed into each one of these. Next, we got power box setup and mounting. Then we got wiring from the power box to the first strand of lights where we're actually starting. Next, we got installing the tracks, installing peak, installing corners. Then we got like hiding wires. These are all they're not in any particular order, but they all are done kind of in the middle of the job. And then last, we got the app setup. So setting up the customer's app on their phone. So that's the main process, but we're going to break down a very detailed process on how to install these lights. All right, next we got our equipment checklist. Okay, so you don't need anything crazy. There's nothing really crazy that you need for these lights. So I know there's a lot of stuff here, but they're all very small things. So obviously we're going to need ladders to get up on the roof. So I recommend getting a couple ladders, anywhere between 30 feet and 36 feet extension ladders. And then I also recommend getting somewhere around 5 to 8 feet step ladders. So get a couple of them so each of your guys can be installing lights. Next, we got obviously drills to screw the track in. Pitch hoppers, okay? Pitch hoppers are super important. I'm not sure if you know what it is, but it's basically a wedge that you put on the roof that levels yourself out. So this allows you to actually put ladders on the roof safely, okay? And again, there's going to be links to all of these specific items, not drills or anything like that. Now we got heat shrink wrapping wire connectors, okay? So when you're wiring the wires together, let's just say for the power injector, instead of taping it with just electrical tape, which is not waterproof, we have these waterproof heat shrink wrapping wire connectors. Now we got wire strippers, hole dozer kit. So that's for drilling into the soffit, making holes. A magnet, obviously, for cleaning up the screws and whatnot. We got a magnet fish wire. So this is when you're fishing the wires from the garage to the soffit and fascia. Then we got a speed square, so obviously pretty self-explanatory. Drywall anchors, a measuring wheel, screwdrivers, left, right, and straight aviation snips, a miter saw with a metal cutting blade, white wire clamps. So these are where when you're running wires on the wall, so you can just clamp them in. A caulking gun to actually hide the wires when you can't run it through an attic or anything like that. And color match soffit screws. Okay, so this is a quick equipment checklist on actually what you're going to need for the jobs. Some things depend on the job, such as caulking. You're going to have to get color match caulking or color match screws. But for the most part, everything here is good to have some stock. First thing, before you get started on the job, very first thing to do is to make a plan for the job so it just runs a lot more smoothly. So basically the thing that we're doing now is we're measuring out 70 feet, because every 70 feet you have to put a booster wire to boost the lights to keep the power up, or else if you don't do that, the lights will be dim closer to the end of the job. So we're measuring out 70 feet here, so we can pre-cut the wire, and so it just makes life a lot easier at the end of the day. So how we're basically planning out this job is we're putting the power box in the garage, we're wiring it up through the ceiling, and then we're doing the peak separately. So we're putting a splitter, so we're doing the peak on one splitter, which I'll show you later, and then we're starting the lights here. So basically 50 feet. So we're measuring the peak first. So I'm going to measure the peak, which I reckon is probably around 10 feet. So let's just say that's 20 feet there. And 20 feet, just so I have it right. So we got 20 feet. Now we're going to start at this corner here, and we're going to measure till around like 60, 70 feet. So we got here. We got this part. Here, here, here. So right now we're at about 60 feet. So what that means is that basically we're going to be putting the power booster right around somewhere along this corner here. It doesn't specifically matter where, as long as it's somewhere close to it. So basically I have to pre-cut the wire and just plan out that it's going to go all the way from the power box, which is going to be in the garage here. We're going to have to loop it up through the ceiling and then get enough slack to put the jump wire all in the tracks all here. So planning is super important. If you forget that, it is such a pain. I've had it before where I've literally installed all the tracks and I forgot the power wire, and then I had to undo all of the tracks, rewire it all, so it just makes life a lot easier. I will just be unboxing the power box as if it's already packed up. So, number one, we've got the Wi-Fi controller, super important. We've got all of our custom jump wires for the house. Great, we'll set that to the side. We've got, right here, we've got the signal booster, so I'll just undo this real quick. We've got the signal booster. We're going to need this for the box. Set it to the side. We've got a female end, which we need. We'll set it to the side. We've got a male end. We're going to most likely need it a little bit later on in the job, so we'll set that to the side. We've got our power injector. We're going to need that later. And then we've got a splitter just in case if we need it. Set that over to the side. Now, this is our box full of hardware to mount the power supply, and there's a little waterproof seal. We're gonna need this right now. Awesome, this is garbage here. Not gonna need that. So now we've got the power supply. Awesome, so this box here, in case if anyone asks, it converts the 120 volts from the wall to 12 volts, which the lights use. So first thing is we're gonna mount the box because it's loose and this box is gonna be mounted to the wall. So step number one, open the hardware little container here. So number one, I don't use everything in here. I use the water seal, which we'll put here. I use these two little brackets, which we'll put down there. Got another bracket here, put that down. Now I use these two, there's only two of these. They are screws with wider heads. So I'm gonna need this. And we're going to need the other, there's only two bolts in here. We're gonna need both of them. Boom, 2 bolts. And then the rest, it's just a bunch of these little screws. I never really use them. The only reason why you do need them, or don't even need them, but what you could use them for is if you look very closely, there should, that little hole right here, you can secure this little grid a little bit more if you wanted to. So Perfect. Okay, cool. So I'm going to set everything else to the side. So step number one, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so you can see me. So I am going to take this bracket, put it in, so there's two little lips here, if you can see, just like that, securing it in there. Beautiful, just like that. Then we're taking a bolt and putting it in there. So you're gonna need number one for the power tool, or for the power box, we're gonna need a Phillips screwdriver, which we got here. So we're gonna screw that in there nice and tight. Boom. Give it a good little tighten there. Perfect. We're gonna do the exact same thing on the other side. So flipping it over, sticking this in there. Boom. And then be careful, we're not breaking any of the wires here. This is if you twist it too much, you can break it. So for the sake of the video, I'm gonna try and give you the best angle of me doing it, but very straightforward. And then you just screw that in there until it's tight. Boom. Perfect. Next step is to secure the box to the power supply to the actual grid. So I will just fix this camera angle super quick. Perfect. So now there's a bunch of little holes in the grid. So we're going to take these little screws here and screw the brackets in. Boom. It just screws into any of the holes into the grid. So I'm just screwing it in. Perfect. Make sure it's level. Boom. Taking the other screw right here. And then screwing it into the hole. Boom. Boom. Okay, so now it's secured. Great. Step number one complete. Step number two, okay, is to run the female end that we have here through, I'm going to move the box, through here. All right, so step number two is to connect the female end and the power injector. So it's a very long wire. It's the long, skinny black wire. You have to put it every 50 feet on the lights to boost the power supply so the lights stay the same color. So this is a very important step and a lot of people forget it and it makes life tough, okay? So waterproof seal, okay? This is just in case you have to install the box on the outside of the house. 95% of the time we install it on in the garage, and whenever we can, we install it on in the garage. But some homeowners are very stubborn about it and they want it on the outside. So we have to waterproof the box. I do it every single time just to keep good practices going. So number one, you unscrew this little washer. Boom. Okay, step number one. Step number two is to fit both of the female end. So the female end, you can always tell it's a female because it has this little cap on it, the twisty cap, and the end of the power injection. Put them together and stick them through the hole like that. So before we actually do that, what we will do is we will strip all of the ends off of the female and the power injector. So you need little wire strippers like this. Basically, you just peel the two wires apart, like such. It's like licorice, perfect. Now you strip it. I strip it about an inch. So just like that. Strip it, perfect. And then same thing with the other one. You just strip it. And on all of the wires in the box, what I do is twist them just to make them easy to go in where we're putting them. So I twist it, I twist it, I twist it so it has some strength to it. Perfect. Sometimes I'll even fold it like that and then twist it just to give it some good strength there. So same thing with this one. Twist, twist, twist. Boom. And then I will fold it like that. Perfect. So now that this is stripped, we will move on to the female. Same thing. As you can see, they're already a little bit exposed like this. I find that this isn't enough exposure. So what I do is I first of all cut all of those little exposed metal pieces off like this. Boom. And then I just strip them all. Strip, strip, strip. It just makes it easier to work with the wires, okay? Same thing. Give it about an inch. Boom. Boom. And then boom. Perfect. Okay, cool. So now that all the wires are stripped, now we can move on to putting it through the actual water seal part. So number one, we're putting the power injector through. We could do this, we could have stripped the wires after, but it's a little hard and it's a little tight working in the box. So same thing. And again, with the female one, same exact thing. You want to make them, you want to twist them so it gives the wires a bit more strength so they're not fraying everywhere. So I twist, 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 just to give it some strength. And I do that with, well, I only do this when I have to put the wires in the box. Beautiful. Okay, now that that's done and it's fully in, so I put the female end as far as possible into the actual water seal as possible, and then what I do is I stick it. So there's two holes here. If you can see, I don't want to lift it up, but there's a hole right here. You stick all of the wires in the hole. There should be 6 ends, so put them all through the hole. Make sure all 6 of them go through. Boom. Okay, so now the water seal is in place. Now I take the power injection, which is this little one here, and I make sure I have enough room to put it to the power supply. So there's this little plastic thing. I leave it off because you need to access the wires. And then I just measure the distance it needs to reach this little terminal here. So I have the rough distance, perfect. And then making sure the female's all the way through. Now I take this right here, make sure it goes through all of the wires. Perfect, perfect. And then you just go ahead and screw it in there. Screw it. And then you take this end and then it twists, so it also screws from this end too. And then this is what really seals it and makes it watertight. And then same with this one too. Beautiful. Okay, so now that this is all set up, we can start attaching the power source, or sorry, the power injector and the female end here. So we'll start with the power injector. So if you can see here, I'm gonna try and zoom in as best as possible. So you'll see that there is a V negative and a V positive, okay? So what we can do is if you look super closely, it's so hard to see on these through the video, but there is this one, you see it's marked with gray lines. That's your positive, and then the other one is the negative. So obviously positive to positive and negative to negative, okay? So let's unscrew. So we're going to start with the positive, which is the gray one here, the one that's marked gray. We're going to unscrew this little screw here to let the wire in. You don't unscrew it all the way. You just loosen it enough to fit the wire in there, okay? So I'm loosening it. Now it's in there. Perfect, it's all the way in. Now I'm tightening it as hard as I can. Boom. Okay, now that's tightened. I give it a tug test. So it's not quite tight enough because it came loose. So it has to be a little bit more tight than I put it. Boom. Tug test, good. Now we're gonna take the negative terminal, or take the negative wire and put it in the negative terminal. It's the one closest to these two wires. So the next one over, that's negative, and the next one over, that's positive. So we're unscrewing it. We're not completely unscrewing it, we're just loosening it. And then it slips in between the metal plate. It's kind of hard to show you right now, but we're slipping it in between the metal plate and the screw, okay? So this is why we twist the wires, to give it a little bit of strength. Perfect. So I just barely gave myself enough room for the wires. So I should have given myself a little bit more room, but it works. We're screwing it in super, super tight. Super tight, super tight. Boom, giving it a tug test. It's perfect. Okay, so now that the power injection is all good to go, we got our positive one here on the positive labeled side, negative on negative, we're good to go. The power injection is set up, okay. Now, this is the fun part and the last step for the lights. Okay, so now it comes to the female end right here, okay? We got three different wires, and this connects to the Wi-Fi controller, okay? So Wi-Fi controller, open it. It's a puck. It's a puck with these 6 terminals, okay? Super simple, okay? They're all marked. So there's a V positive, there's a DAT, and a GND. The only one that we're caring about is the V positive, okay? Positive goes into positive. So if we look closely on the female wire, there is one wire that is white. That one, this one right here. That's the positive. So what we do is we put the positive into positive, and then from there, there's 3 wires, we put them in order. So positive, and then the middle one to the middle one, the last one to the last one, okay? So before we do that, we have to take a little tiny flathead screwdriver like this one, and we have to unscrew all the 3 wires that we are taking out, okay? So if you can see, the reason we unscrew it or loosen it is to let the wire in here. Put the wire in there. So I'm just gonna unscrew the other 2, unscrew it, or loosen it, I should say. Beautiful. So now you can see that there's actually room for the wires to fit in there, right? Boom. Okay, so as I was saying before, positive goes into positive, and then the rest go in an order from there. So the positive one is the very last one here. So, and we're making sure that it's the white labeled wire. White, positive in positive, okay? Positive and positive, middle and middle, and then the last one in the last one. And it should fit all perfectly like that. Once all the wires, if you can see that, once all the wires are in there like that, you tighten it. You want to make sure it's really tight, because this is a permanent installation, right? We don't want to be coming back 5 years later because something isn't tight enough, okay? So we're screwing it really tight. Perfect. Middle one. Screwing it in really tight. Perfect. Last one. Beautiful. Giving them on one more tighten. And then tug test. I tug test all of my wires separately. Boom, that is in there. It is looking good. Awesome, good stuff. Okay, so now that this is in, the last step to connect everything is there's a little plug-in right there. See the circle one? It's already plugged in. You're just, boom, plugged in. And so now we have a complete setup box, okay? So obviously I'm gonna put this little plastic piece back in just to make it look super professional. Oh, get in there. Boom. So now nothing can get in here. It's protected. Beauty. So this is a full setup power box. Okay. So you can close it up. Close it up and then latch it. Now, to show you the power, this is the power signal. So there's little arrows on it, making sure that the arrows are pointing away from the box because that's where the current's going. Taking the male end, plugging it into that female end that we installed. Plugging it in. Beauty. Twisting on our waterproof connector or our waterproof seal. Okay, so before we put it on the wall and actually mount it, super important to test out the lights to make sure we wired everything correctly in the box. Okay, so we're gonna take our plug-in, plug it into the wall, just a normal wall plug. It's in, perfect. Okay, so if you open the box, you'll see that there's a green light right there. That means it's working. And then if you flip over the Wi-Fi controller, there's a little red dot on the Wi-Fi dock. So everything's looks like it's working so far. Perfect. So next thing is we are going to take a strand of lights like such and plug it into the signal booster where the lights are going to run out of. So we're taking it, we're plugging it in. This is just a test, okay? To see if we did everything properly. Boom. The lights this is exactly what we want to see, okay? The lights are changing colors. That means it's on a pairing mode. Perfect. This is awesome. You know, this is a very clear sign that something is not wired correctly in the box, okay? If the lights are on a solid blue color. A solid blue color is something is wired wrong in the box. Typically, what it means is that you wired the female end in the wrong order. That's 95% of the time what happens. But you know there's something wrong if they're just a solid dark blue color. But if they're flashing and changing colors like this, they're ready to pair and boom, Bob's your uncle. Now that the box is completely set up, now what we're gonna do is just install it in the garage. So we wanna make sure it's close to an outlet here and preferably on the side of the house where you're starting the lights. So we're gonna be starting the lights on that side, so it just makes sense that the box is here. So obviously you wanna make it level or else it just looks like shit. So basically, I just use a phone level, nothing fancy. It's level. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mark it, all the holes just with a screw. There's 4 spots to screw it into. Okay, so now that that's done, before I did this, I found a stud. So stud. So anything that you don't need a stud for, you are going to have to install. Basically, you're just going to have to install wall anchors, which I'll go over right now. But just so I know, this is that. Sometimes they're a little hard to find, but this is this. So. There's already a screw there, so we're gonna have to go up a little bit. But regardless, yeah. Okay, so installing wall anchors, pretty easy. Just buy them at Home Depot. It's pretty self-explanatory. You guys are all contractors, so you guys probably don't know this stuff, but I'll go over it anyway. Basically, you just hammer this in where it's not on a stud. So stud right here, no stud here. You basically take this, you hammer it in, and then this is in here, and then the screws in here. So I'm just gonna it's kind of hard to videotape it and do it all at the same time. So just so you know, that's how you do it. Very self-explanatory. Okay, so this is a very important part about lighting. So this is what will separate you from just a handyman Joe from like a professional permanent light company. And what that is the first track that you install and the last track on a house, basically anywhere where you can see a cap end. So let's just say I put the cap, like let's just say the roof is here and I put the cap here. It looks really unprofessional when you can see all the wiring in here. So the roof is here, there's this big hole here. So what professional companies do is they cap off the hole. So this is how you do it. It's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. So step number one, when you do it, you have to measure the distance from, here if you want to come in closer, you have to measure the distance of the height of the track. So it's basically 3/4 of an inch, okay? So what I'm gonna do is measure 3/4 of an inch this way, and you'll see why. Thank you. I'll get the pencil. So I'm measuring 3/4 of an inch. Try and be as precise as possible. So right there, perfect. Now we have a little mark there. We take our square. We square it like this, and then we just draw a line. Boom. Next step is to you want to have left and right hand aviation snips. So I believe these are left-handed ones, so we'll start with the right. So right-handed snips. It doesn't mean you necessarily have to hold it in the left hand, it's just for cutting on the right side of things. So you take that and you go on the ridge of the cap here, and then you cut ever so carefully. You want to make this really nice, right until your mark. Just like scissors in kindergarten, you don't want to completely clamp down on the snips. You want to like always be cutting something. Again, you take your left-hand snips for the left side. Same thing, go on the ridge. You want to cut directly on the ridge. And the more precise this cut is, the nicer the end cap will be. Okay, boom. So, next step is to fold this cap that you made. So you're gonna spread apart the tabs here, and you're gonna fold this in ever so slightly till it's 90 degrees. So if you look at it now, which we're gonna snip these little parts off, but it's a cap, you can't see any of the wires. So last but not least, you're just gonna be cutting off this part of the track. So you're gonna go in from the inside, remember, left-hand snips, you sit on the left-hand side, and you're just going to snip it off flush to the actual bend that you made, okay? Boom. And then same thing with these guys. Now, when you're looking at it, when it's on the roof is going to be like this, and you're not going to be able to see anything. So this is what separates professional companies from just a handyman installing permanent lights. The installation part of the light. So basically these lights pop in the little holes. So I'll show you in a couple seconds, but it's super important. If you come here, you see the arrows on the lights. It's important that you remember the flow of the direction. So we installed the box over here, we're starting the lights here, and they're gonna flow that way. So we want the arrows on the lights to be pointing that way. Once you get the first track installed, it's very easy. It's impossible to mess it up. But for the first track, you have to make sure that the lights are in the right way. So now that we have that done, these lights are popped in. Cool, we're good. Now we take the male end, plug it into the female end of the jump cord. Alex, if you can zoom in up here.
Yeah.
It's important on every single connection to screw this waterproof seal on. This is what makes the lights weatherproof. If you don't do it, it's probably gonna rust. So now that that's on, it's also important to remember the power booster, because we're running it in the track up until the point where we measured out there. So a lot of the times when I was first starting installing, I would forget this part and I would install everything, and it was just like I had to literally take everything off just to put this black wire in. So now that we have all that figured out, now we can actually go into the installation part of it. So as you can see, these lights, it perfectly covers up all the wires and everything like that. So remember the end that we just made? You can't see anything and it looks super professional. And so just to show you again, this little lip here slides in between the soffit and fascia. So see all the wires here? We just cover all the wires, slide it in, and then slide it to the end. Once it's up here, you can let it go. It's not like secure on the roof, but you can at least let it go to grab your drill and some screws. Again, another pro tip to actually, you want to pick up that screw. Another pro tip to be a professional permanent light installer or company, you want to use color matching screws. So see, this is tan, this is tan. It's like all these little things are the details that will like spread your company word of mouth, right? So we want to be super professional when we're on the job. Next, the fun part is screwing the soffit screws into the soffit and fascia. So we're not screwing it on here. There's already pre-made holes here. So you're just screwing it on. Boom, that one's done. How to wire it. So this is a short little power injector wire. Normally it's obviously going to be like close to like 60 to like 80 feet when you're putting it on a house, because you have to put a power injector like this every, I would say like 50 to 70 feet. Anything over 70 feet, you're going to need like 2 power. So if it's 2 power boosters. So if the lights are 150 feet, you're going to need 2, 140 feet, you're going to need 2 power boosters. Okay. So step number 1, we are going to split the wire and strip it on the power booster wire. So zoom in here a bit so you can see what I'm doing. So we're splitting it just like that. Okay. Next, we're stripping the wire about 1 inch, just like that. Same thing on the other side, okay? About 1 inch. Perfect. Okay, we're gonna set that aside for now. Now, we're gonna do the same thing on the power injector, okay? So, I'd just like to snip these. Same thing, we're splitting it. Just like that. Stripping it about 1 inch. And about 1 inch. Perfect, okay, so now we got 4 exposed wires. We're gonna want to tie them together. So positive to positive, negative to negative. So how you tell if it's positive or negative, there will be a little, let me just see if I can, see that gray dashed line? Those gray dashes, this is a positive. The unlabeled one is a negative. Same thing on this one, okay? So gray dashed one, this one here, that is positive and this is negative. So we're tying positive to positive and negative to negative. Okay, perfect. So positive to positive. So I like to straighten out the wires. You stick them in each other. You want to get as many different connections as possible. You take it and then you twist it. You want to twist it really good here, okay? We're twisting the wires, twisting the wires, twisting the wires. You want to get it really nice and tight here, because obviously it's permanent, and if you don't do it tight enough, they're gonna come off. So I do a little tug test like that. It is good. Same thing, negative to negative. I straighten the wires out. Get as many of those strands of wires in each other as possible, and then we're twisting. Same deal. And then we're giving it a tug test. So now that they're both connected, we're gonna take some electric tape. We're gonna make two little strands of tape, two little pieces. They do not need to be big, okay? So that's about good. And then that one's good, okay? So now we're gonna tape each of the exposed metal piece of the wire together, or not together. We're gonna tape each one of them separately. And then at the end, we're gonna tape them both together, okay? So we're just wrapping our tape around, because if these two wires touch, it's not good, okay? Giving it a nice little squeeze so the tape doesn't come off. Same thing for this guy here. Oh, why don't we do the other end? Boom. They're taped together now. Both of them are taped, so if they touch, nothing's gonna happen. Now we take a bigger piece of tape. Oh, tape just ended. Now we're gonna take a bigger piece of tape, and we're just going to tape them both together so they're not, there's not really any chance of them disconnecting. Boom. Now, this is a perfectly connected power injection. So now, basically, give me 1 second. Now, at the 50 foot mark, we're going to take two strands of lights. We're gonna plug one of them into here. And then we're gonna take our other one and plug it into here, as such. So now, this is going in between two lights, and it's just going to reboost the power supply. How to hide wires on the house. Okay, so there's two main ways to do it. Number one being hiding the wires in the soffit and fascia by drilling a hole and fishing the wire through. Okay, so that's number one. That is the cleanest looking one. That's basically the priority. Like, make that the way you always do it when you can. There are some times where you can't really do that, and there's not really a way to, basically wire it through the soffit and fascia. But what you do there is completely different. You basically have to hide the wire on the house. And how we do that is we put color match caulking on the house just to make it blend in super nice. And we're gonna go over some different examples as to where to do that. So this is a perfect example of how you can basically drill a hole in both sides of the soffit and fish the wire through. So basically what I would do in this case is right here, drill a hole through the soffit, a little hole using a dozer kit, and then drill a hole right about there, right there. And then obviously make it the hole small enough so that the track covers it. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna fish the jump wire from right there all the way in and out there. And you're gonna fish it right through there. And that's how you can do it, is doing it through the soffit. This is another example as to where we couldn't actually put it through the soffit and fascia. So we couldn't actually drill through this box because there's flashing on the top there, so it would ruin the waterproofness of the roof. So what we did is we actually hid the wire right along in the fascia right here, and then actually on the house, but we see the color match caulking there, how you can't even see the wire. It's perfectly hidden. 45-degree angle cuts with track. So how to do a corner just like this, a basic corner. So first things first, what you're going to need is you are going to need a pencil to mark it, and that's about it. So first things first is we place the track directly butted up against the edge of the roof, okay? Doesn't really matter if you cut this one at a 45-degree angle or this one, does not really matter. What I like to do most of the time is think about exactly how the homeowners are gonna like walk, so and see the corners. So it doesn't really matter. For this one, we'll just do it like this. So basically you take both of them and you line them perfectly together so you can see exactly where it's gonna land. So now, basically all you do is just mark a little 45-degree angle here. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then we're gonna go ahead and cut this one at a 45-degree angle, and then we are going to notch this one so that the wire and the lights actually have some room to go around the corner. Okay, so now we're actually at the cutting point and we are going to cut it at a 45-degree angle. I always recommend having a miter saw like this, obviously with a specialized blade for cutting metal and aluminum. So this is what I use. The reason for it is because you're never going to mess up the 45-degree angle. What you could do instead, if you don't have one of these, is you could use a square it so it's a perfect 45-degree angle, and then you can just use snips, but sometimes it's not a clean cut. This time, 100% of the time, it's a clean cut, so I like using this. So we're going to go ahead and cut it at a 45-degree angle. We're going to change this to 45 degrees. Then we're going to line it up. Just like that. And then now we just have to snip a couple of the tracks. So you'll see if you cut a full track at a 45-degree angle, see this little piece right here, you're going to want to square that off. So square it off so it's a nice square edge. This is done. Now we're going to be taking this track, and since the lights are going to be put like this here, so this is what it's going to look like. Perfect 45-degree angle right here. Boom. But if you look at it from the inside, there's no space for the wire or for the lights to go from this light here to this light. So we're gonna have to cut a notch right here. So cutting a notch is super simple. Just go like this. Obviously measure it so you're not over cutting it, and you're just cutting super straight. Boom. And then you're just breaking it off just like this. So that now when we put the lights like this, now the wire can actually wrap around right through here and here. So I'll show you actually what that looks like. So we'll put the lights in, we'll put them like this. Now we're going to connect our other strand. Remember, doing the waterproof connections, just like this and like this. Now you'll see that when we go to connect this one right here, that now it's going to be a perfect 45-degree angle, and this has enough room to slip by the corner. And this is what the corner will look like once it's up on the house. So perfect 45-degree cut, seamless, you can't see anything, and that's how you do perfectly cut 45-degree angles. What's up, guys? This is a video on how to measure peaks, okay? So This is one of the most important parts of the installation process for a number of reasons. Number one being, let's just say we have a peak right here, okay? If you were to install the lights starting from this corner right here and moving all the way up here and then down here, what will happen is that you will get unevenly spaced lights at the peak. So you might have a light right here, and then you might have a light right here. And it just looks really inconsistent when you're doing peaks. So in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how to do the peaks so that number one, you're gonna have symmetrical lights like this. You'll have symmetrical lights so that they're evenly spaced all throughout the peak and it looks super uniform all throughout the house, okay? And number two is that depending on where we are wiring the lights, okay? So let's just say the house is like this, okay? Let's just say the house comes here. So we're wiring the lights this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, and this way. And then it continues here. Let's just say we're wiring it starting right here. We want to always start on a factory plug. So like, let's just say it's a female plug right here. We want to start here. And so now we're actually going to have to figure out how many lights we're going to have to add on this side. Because most of the time, it won't actually be that it ends perfectly on a factory edge. So this will tell you exactly how many lights you're going to need to finish off this end. Most of the time it's like 4, 3, 2, or even 1 lights, or even 5. It all depends on the peak. So I'm going to show you how to do it. So this is the same process for every single peak. No matter the pitch, no matter the height, it is the exact same thing all throughout. So let's get into it. So I'm going to redraw the peak here. Now I'm going to be giving some hypothetical measurements. So first step in doing peaks is you have to measure one side of a peak, okay? So let's just say that this peak right here is roughly, let's just say it is 228 inches. And we always measure in inches just so we can be as detailed as possible. So it is 228 inches. So first things first is we are going to divide the, sorry, I'm just going to erase this and put it in a better spot. We are going to divide the 228 and we are going to divide that by 39.5 inches. 39.5 inches is the length of one track exactly, okay? So we're going to do the quick calculation here. So, sorry, quick add here. So 228 divided by 39.5 gives us 5.77, okay? So gives us 5.77. So this number right here tells us exactly how many tracks are going to be right here and right here, okay? So we know that there's definitely going to be 5 tracks. Now the 0.7, so this right here, the 0.77, is going to be exactly how many lights it is. So most of the time, 70% of a track, I would guesstimate that this is going to be around 4 lights. So 70% of a track is, roughly somewhere between the 3 and 4 light marker. So if we really, really, really want to find out the exact length of where we're going to have to cut without actually going up on the roof and marking it, this is what we do. So we already know there's going to be 5 guaranteed tracks on each side. So now we're just going to figure out what 77% of one track is in inches. So what we're going to do is we are going to multiply 39.5 multiplied by 0.77 to find out what exactly 77% of one track is in inches. So let's do the calculation again. So 39.5 multiplied by 0.77 That gives us 30.4. So now, if you really want to find out an accurate measurement, you're just going to take one length of a track. So pretend that this is a track right here. And we are going to measure, what was the number? 30.4. We're basically just going to measure 30.5 inches. So 30.5 inches. And that will roughly tell you where the light is. So let's just say it's right here. Now we can mark the exact spot and cut it off, and you will know exactly how many tracks it's going to be. And more importantly, how many lights, okay? So now that we know how many lights are actually going to be on the peak, now it's time to figure out how we are going to install them from the peak down. So that's the first step, and that's kind of like the most mathy part about this whole thing. So let's redraw the peak super quick. So remember in the beginning of the video, I said we always install from the peak down. Always from the peak down. The reason we do that is so that there's evenly spaced lights right here. So now we know that there's exactly 5 tracks, which is exactly 25 lights plus 4 tracks, or sorry, plus 4 lights. So in total, we have 29 lights. That is going from on one side to the other side. Since it's a peak, it's going to be the exact same, okay? So now we have to basically set it up so that if knowing that we're going to start exactly from the peak here and work our way down, we're going to have to figure out how we are going to space out the lights in order for us to start on a factory plug end right here, and in order for us to know how many lights we are going to have to add at the end, okay? So basically how I do this is I get 2 tracks out. I get 2 tracks. So let's just say this is one track. This is another track. There's going to be 5 lights. Cool. So knowing that there's going to be specifically 4 lights hanging off here, it's not going to be an exact 5. We're going to have to end with 4, so cutting 1 short. What I do is basically I place the lights in 2 tracks that are going to be at the peak, but I do it in a way that there's going to be 4 lights hanging off of this end so that we can incorporate the last track. So I'll basically take 1 strand of lights, which is 5, and I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll start with the 5 on 1 track. And then I'll do another 5. I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then do another 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we know that on the other side, obviously we factored in that we're going to have a 4 like tail end, a 4 light at the bottom, which we know is the exact measurement. We're going to have that here. But on the other side, now we know we are going to have exactly 1 light left over. So when we're planning it, you know, we can order, typically we just order like strands of 1 light just to be super specific, and you can use them anywhere. But now you know you're going to have 1 light left over on the end to complete this, so it's landing on a factory edge, and then you can go ahead and continue the lights on the roof that way. So that is kind of the 2 main parts of the peak. So just to review everything, step number 1, we are measuring peak. Peak in inches. In inches, okay? Step number 2, we are dividing that by, so we are taking the length of peak and dividing that by 39.5 inches, okay? And we're always doing it in inches. Step number 3 is taking that number, so we're going to take what this equals, we're going to call this x. Now we're going to take x, and we are going to, basically, it's going to be a full number, so it's going to be 4, or like a full number, and then we're going to take the remainder, which is like the 0.67 or the 0.34. So we're going to take the x point y. That was a terrible y. We're going to take the y. Then we are going to multiply the 39.5 times the y. So times whatever the remainder is, the 0.xx or the 0.36. So just to keep it simple, I'm going to give you an example here. So let's just say we're dealing with 6.87. So now we're going to be taking the be taking the 8.7, and then we are going to be multiplying by the, by 0.87, and that's going to equal a certain number. After we get this number, it's going to be in inches. It's going to be like 38. It's going to be like, 25.6. It's going to be a certain number. And then what you do is you measure, step number 4 is you measure x, which is this one here, on the track, and figure out how many lights, or we're going to figure out number of lights to end with. So that's going to be like, it's either going to be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, either one of those. Now last step is we basically pre-put the lights in the track. So we basically track, leaving a remainder for the end of the peak. So that's a very detailed process. It's 5 steps. Number 1, measuring the peak in inches, dividing whatever length that is by 39.5 inches. You get the number. Then you take the remainder, so the point here. Then you multiply that by 39.5, which gives you the exact length of the track. You measure the track. You measure whatever answer you get. You measure that on the track to figure out the number of lights to end with. So it's either going to be, let's just say it's like 3 lights you have to end with. Now, last step is you're going to put it in a track knowing that there's going to be a remainder of 3 lights, and then you're just going to basically fill out the 2 tracks that at the peak. So now we are going to be cutting the tracks for specifically a peak. So the reason why we cut it is because if you think about it, a peak is right here. You're going to have that weird little triangle at the top, right? You're going to have it like right here. So you see that little weird triangle? You don't want that because it looks super ugly. So we're going to have to cut it in a way so that they slide into each other perfectly so it's seamless, okay? So what we do for this is, number 1, we mark depending on the pitch of the peak. So if you think about it, if your peak is super, super like steep, you're going to have to cut a little bit of a bigger ridge. But if it's super shallow, you're going to have to cut a smaller ridge. So we'll do it like an average one. So I like to do it typically like this. you can measure it for specifically for your peak, and basically all that you do is you kind of just get the rough slope of the peak, and then you go from there. But for right now, this is a pretty standard line to cut it at. Okay, so you should always have left and right hand snips. For the sake of this video, my whole crew is using all of my left and right hand snips. So I'm just going to use straight snips. You can get away with it. Not recommended though. So basically you just cut on the ridges. Make sure it's super accurate. See, again, this is a super tough one to do just because I don't have the proper snips, but you can get away with it. And so you want to cut, right on that line there, and then we'll flip it over, and then we're going to cut right on that line there. Okay, so now once we made the 2 cuts, now what we're going to do is bend the track back. We're going to bend it back. See, I didn't do a really good job on this one. It's not straight, so make sure you just do a really good job when you're square. Now we're just going to bend it off so it cuts. See, it's not really straight here, but it should be a perfectly straight line with perfect cuts. I don't have the proper equipment here, so now what we're going to do is we bend these 2 little pieces a little bit, just so that the track could slide in. Now you'll see that it slides perfectly in. So you want it to slide perfectly in, so then at the peak it is perfect, it's seamless, you can't see anything, right? It's perfect like that. And then the lights, remember, we're measuring from the peak down, so that these 2 lights right here, they are perfectly even. So that's kind of how you cut the peak. And obviously it depends on the slope, so measure your slopes and also do a good job making sure you do a straight line. It all makes a difference. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and if you found it helpful and you want to learn more about permanent outdoor lighting, what I want you to do is subscribe to this YouTube channel, as we live and breathe permanent outdoor lighting. We talk about everything on this channel, so please give it a subscribe, and if you really like this video, please feel free to give it a like. That would be super appreciated. Now, for the promise that I made at the beginning of the video of giving away the supplier that I personally use for my permanent outdoor lighting brand. And just to clarify, these, the Permalights, the website that I'm giving you a link to, are the exact lights that I used in this video. So you guys can actually use this video tutorial exactly for these lights, which is pretty cool. What I want you to do is there's going to be a website linked to this bottom of the description on this video. And what I want you to do is click on the site, check them out. It's a full information page about these lights. But go ahead and shoot them an email saying code Johnny, and they will you'll be able to actually order the lights straight off of this supplier, which is really cool, with a pretty cool discount. So feel free to reach out to them. If you own a home service business or a seasonal contractor and are thinking about adding permanent lights to your services, I personally coach and teach seasonal contractors just like yourself on how to add this to your current business to, add an extra like 100K revenue in the slow winter season. So if you really want to learn more about this, what I want you to do is there will be a link also in this description, and join our school community, as we this is more of a personal community where business owners that have permanent lights in their business, they we chat about it, and any questions are answered in this school community. Some great value in there. And if you actually want our coaching program and want to personally work with me, you guys can check out the school community, and there'll be a form to fill out there. Thanks guys for watching. Take care.